Hello everyone, I'm Dragons After Dark, and today we're going to do something a little different. I had an article pop up for me on my phone from TheGamer called World of Warcraft Dragonflight Rarest Battle Pets. So I wanted to go over the list to see how accurate it was, or if it was made without any sense of the pets and how difficult they were/are to get. Because the article states, a handful of these won't be so easy to come by, and it will require straight up blind luck to acquire some of these. I'm basing my critique on the difficulty, time, and so on. I'll be limiting it to the Dragonflight released pets since the article was created before 10.05. I will say the list isn't quite accurate because it names a pet that came out in Shadowlands, which I'm taking as an opportunity to expand beyond Dragonflight and compare it to an older list created by Hazelnutty to see if any of the pets on her list still stand up to our current roster. Then I'll make my own list at the end for the pets I believe to be the rarest overall. I'll be avoiding region-locked pets and limited promo/time and CE pets since that doesn't exactly portray a fair basis overall, as a lot of them can no longer be collected. Though this will count as their honorable mention. Let's get started. Alright, first up we have the article on TheGamer, which I will link below in the description, called World of Warcraft Dragonflight 10 Rarest Battle Pets. And before we continue on, I just want to say this was published January 20th of this year. So for pet battle articles, it's actually super current. Let's get to the first pick. Lord Basilton, 100% disagree with this. I'm not sure. I've already looked through the list, I will tell you that. I've already looked through the list, and I'm gonna disagree with the majority of it. What I think they did was they went onto a website that ranks the rarity of battle pets. Like Warcraft Pets has a page for ranking the number of profiles on the page that have like all of the pets that could possibly be had, and possibly they went to some page like that and they just they looked for the top 10 rarest from the Dragonflight expansion, and that's what they did. But the list, I will say, in no way reflects how difficult these pets are to obtain. Lord Basilton's a fine example. I think it's a maybe 15-minute quest chain if you're reading the text. Most people don't, so you can probably push it down to maybe 10 minutes. Less even if you're in current content right now in 10.1 and you majorly outgear everything you're going to be murdering to get Lord Basilton. So 100% disagree with this. Chip, I mildly disagree with. Chip is one of those pets where if you don't have the correct materials, can be a little obnoxious to get in Dragonflight, simply because one of the materials was dropping quite a lot in the pre-patch event, but now doesn't drop quite as much. You do need to go through a little bit of Rathian's campaign in the Waking Shores to unlock the vendor at the Obsidian Throne, which you're doing anyway. I don't think Chip actually requires you to have any kind of reputation even. You just need the materials and you need to go through the campaign, and that's it. So, mild disagreement only because one of the materials doesn't drop very well anymore, but it still might not be super expensive on the auction house. Ghost Flame and Stormy, I can agree with this at the time that this was published. So this came out before 10.05. 10.05 was our trading post patch, and then I believe the next patch was when we got the Forbidden Reach. So prior to the Forbidden Reach, getting 1,000 elemental overflow for each pet was super tedious. So I can agree with this. Ghost Flame and Stormy were definitely going to be on the rarer side for the amount of elemental overflow you needed. and because of the fact Elemental Overflow was used to get things like gear. These ones, no. The Jeweled Whelplings, I'm gonna disagree with, mostly because they only seemed rare because they're tied to renown. It's difficult because I can't tell you how many people had the renown to be able to farm for them at the time this article came out. Because this came out literally 4 days before 10.05 released. And at that point, I think I had given up on farming for the jewel maps, and I had just purchased them off the auction house. And I wasn't paying a whole heck of a lot for them, which means that other people were a lot more lucky than I was. Combine that with the fact that 10.0.5 didn't give us any, like, a crazy amount of new content. People were still farming the dirt piles and the scouts packs, which were dropping the gem clusters to craft these pets. So another mild disagreement on the Jeweled Whelps. So Scout, again, we're going to go with a slightly mild disagreement. This one comes down to whether or not you were like just doing mission tables in Shadowlands and you were just stockpiling charms and whatnot. People who didn't have a whole lot to do in Shadowlands and were doing pet content probably were able to buy Scout as soon as it dropped. I was able to buy 2. I did a giveaway for one in the Warcraft Pets Discord, and obviously I kept the other one. On the other hand, I think the outside of pet battling and collecting communities, that side of the coin, it was probably maybe a 50-50 shot whether they just had passively collected enough coins to get Scout. Mr. Toots, 100% disagree. I'm not gonna hold back on this one. Another quest chain that maybe it requires you to be max level. I can't remember. I think some people told me that they were sub 70 and they went to Valdrakken and the quest was not available to them until they turned 70. But it's a quest chain. And considering it's a quest chain to introduce people to pet battling, it's like a tutorial quest chain. It's super easy. Anything that's this easy, anyone can pick it up, no prerequisites, pseudo short quest chains, I'm just gonna disagree with. Not only do you get the pet, but you get a purple stone that you can use on him. So I just disagree. I don't agree with this one at all. Number 4 is Lady Feathersworth. This one, at this point, I mostly agree with. Not 100%, but mostly agree with. What you find with pet battling and pet collecting achievements and pet battling achievements is people tend to do them when they don't have much to do with a current patch. I don't know when the raid released. I think the first raid released around December, so people were still working through raid tiers and whatnot in January, probably. So this one probably did appear to be pretty rare. So this one, I agree that at the time in January that this was written, this probably was one of the rarer Dragonflight pets. Now here is where my that's not a Dragonflight pet comes in, right? So the Flawless Amethyst Bobbleworm was released in Shadowlands. And not only was it released in Shadowlands, it was released in Shadowlands well before Dragonflight came out. This isn't even a Dragonflight battle pet at all. So that's a little bit of a strike. It is a bit of a grind. In the pet community, we call it basically the pet battle version of the Brutosaur, the 5 million gold mount. I will say that they say grinding 10,000 pet charms when only 15 to 20 are obtained per victory is demoralizing. But you have to think about it this way, that each victory is taking you on average maybe a minute to a minute and a half, depending on who you're fighting and where you're at. Really, the receiving of the charms is the quick part. It's getting to each battle that takes forever. So really your travel time is what sucks here, not the actual battle itself. Alvin the Anvil, at the time this released, I don't know. I think I bought mine because I didn't have a blacksmith and they didn't cost a whole lot. So again, I'm gonna kind of disagree here. I will say getting the schematic to drop is the hard part because it's got a really low drop chance from the mob Rosor Forge Smash, but once it drops, I mean, people were crafting them left and right, and the price tanked pretty quick. Violet Violence, oh, to grind for so long. Okay, so at this point, when the article was made, January 20th, 2023, yes, this would have been super, super duper rare to have. You would have to have some of the pets that are unobtainable now, limited time promo, like you had to be pretty up there to be able to hit being able to get this pet. I had all the pets I could feasibly get at the time, and I didn't have this pet. I had to wait for 10:07, I think, before I could get the Violet Violence. This one I 100% agree with. So at least they got the #1 spot correct, right? That being said, I am super, super shocked that they didn't list the Zapthrottle inhaler pets because those continue to be probably one of the worst pets to try and farm and get. Those pets definitely needed to be on this list. Those ones were horrible and still are horrible. But that's going to be it for this article. Do you agree with what I've said about each of these pets so far? Let me know below. But we are now going to move on to Hazelnutty's rarest battle pets in World of Warcraft. And we're going to see if they still stand up or if they have kind of moved beyond that. So, number 10 on her list, she has Stardust. Stardust is the reward you get for fighting Algalon. You fight him outside of I believe it's the Ulduar raid, and you only get, it's a one-shot fight, you win, that's it. You never go back to him, can't fight him ever again. But Stardust is your reward for that. It's not as rare as it used to be. So on Warcraft Pets, it's ranked at over 600, which some of these will be ranked even lower than that and still not break into the top like 150 anymore. And really that just comes with time and downtime, right? Like I said, a lot of pets that require these specific actions that aren't just passive collection pets, they are going to see a boom in getting them when a popular content creator releases a video about them, or there's downtime between patches, which we had more of previously, right? So Stardust, not as rare as it used to be, but still rarer than any of the Whelplings. No, I'm kidding, I don't know. The Thistleaf Adventurer is higher on the list than Stardust, so it ranks at 264. This is the pet that you get from the Dreamweaver provisions in Val'sharah. It had when this video was made, okay, so just to walk it back a little bit, this video's old, right? It's 6 years old. At this point, we've had a couple of expansions, I believe. Maybe 3 expansions. I think this was made maybe during... this was probably made shortly into BFA. Something like that. Anyway, the point is that it used to be a lot rarer. I believe it's cageable. So you can buy it off the auction house, and once people collected it, people throw these on the auction house. They'll specifically farm the Dreamweaver provision. So not rarer than Stardust, not quite as rare as it used to be. And we've moved on to the Wondrous Wisdom Ball. This one is even rarer than the Thistle Leaf Adventure. This one drops from the Kirin Tor supplies. It has a not that fantastic drop rate, because if you think about how many people were playing in Legion and how many people are still farming for this, non-combat pets are really hit or miss on whether the player base are going to collect them. A good example is Una. Probably no one would have cared too terribly much about collecting Una, except it helped them get Ball. Same thing here. So aside from the fact that Taliesin and Evitel really enjoy the Wondrous Wisdom Ball motif, it's still decently rare. It comes in just under 200 at 194. For the Hateful Eye, we are popping back up the list a little bit to 309. The Hateful Eye's rarer because you had to be a Warlock or a Demon Hunter to get it. I'd suggest if you're going to try to get this pet, you use a Demon Hunter, right? Because you don't have to have 3 Demon Hunters to summon the rare that drops this pet. You only need the one. And considering if you want to get the pet and you have a max level Demon Hunter, easy peasy, couple hits and the rare's dead, right? So that's why this one was probably pretty high up on the list, simply because you had to be a Warlock or a Demon Hunter, and if you were a Warlock, you had to get 2 other Warlocks to help with the summoning ceremony. It was a whole ordeal, but it's not quite as rare as it used to be. The Alliance Enthusiast and the Horde Fanatic are definitely further up on the list now. So the Alliance Enthusiast is sitting at 268, and the Horde Fanatic is sitting at 213. Horde wins that one. At this point, they probably went up into the 200s, mostly just from the sheer amount of time between this video and now. People who mildly do PvP have probably managed to get to honor level 20 at this point, right? I haven't because I'm lazy and I don't like PvP, but that's a me thing. Because when you think about it, these came out in Legion, so we've had 3 expansions, and these are still in the 200s. So they can still be kind of rare, but the sheer amount of time has made them less rare. Number 5 is Lagan. So Lagan, however you want to say his name, is still pretty decently rare. Lagan, actually, if I did my list as 11 instead of 10, Lagan would have been number 11. From what I recall, it's not a super difficult pet to get, but it's technically tedious. Does that make sense? I think you have to go through multiple dungeons, you have to do specific things. So if you don't have someone who has done it and remembers how to do it or can guide you through it, I can see how this would get frustrating to try and get. So this one, number 5, Lagan, however you want to say the name, is accurate. This one is still not that high up on the list. It comes in at 122 on Warcraft pets. The albino buzzard, not really that rare anymore, right? So it comes in at 359 on Warcraft pets. Not super rare. We've had people doing enough farming of this pet since the tamer was released, Krissa, that it's been put up on the auction house enough that plenty of people have purchased it. The Nightmare Treant is kind of a little further down on the list, but not as far as Lagan. So the Nightmare Treant is the pet reward for the family battler of the Broken Isles. So doing all 10 families against all of the family-based trainers in Legion on the Broken Isles. However, because of the sheer amount of time between when this achievement released and now, and the downtime we've had, especially in Shadowlands, not as high up on the list anymore. Okay, so the Celestial Calf is actually going to be on my list. I'm not going to tell you where it is, but it's not at number 2. It is a little further down. So the Celestial Calf comes in at number 59 on Warcraft Pets. And this isn't necessarily because it's difficult to obtain, although the vendor is a random spawn in Dalaran, and it doesn't spawn specific days or times. The Mad Merchant just kind of shows up whenever he wants to. The reason this one's rare is it costs you 1,000,000 gold to get. So I do have this pet. Although I regret thinking about it every single time because it costs 1,000,000 gold. But the fact is that's the only reason that this one is as rare as it is, which is why you can see the caption. This is both very easy and somewhat unreasonable to get, and I think that's a perfect description. And last but not least, we have the knockoff Blingtron. The knockoff Blingtron doesn't even make my list today. This is another case of we've had enough time since this pet was released in Legion to now. We've had 6 years of this pet dropping off of the Blingtrons that it's not as rare as it used to be. It's still pretty high on the list, but it didn't quite make it onto my list. And that's it for the Gamer article and Hazelnutty's video. Between the two, I would say Hazelnutty's was far more accurate based on the time it was created, but I don't think that surprises anyone. Now it's time for my list. For number 10, we have the Wicked Lurker. Some people might be surprised about this one being on the list, but I want everyone to think about the requirements to get this pet. Enzoth has to be assaulting Uldum. Not only that, but a particular bonus objective has to spawn, so Pyre the Amalgamated one. You have to kill a rare that the bonus objective spawns, which in turn has its own RNG for the drop rate on this particular pet. This stacked RNG and the fact that things like the Enzoth Assault are bi-weekly, once it got later into the patch, people weren't really doing it all that much, means that this pet is still kind of rare. Now, I probably could have switched places. I could have put Wicked Lurker in number 9 and Lagan as number 10 because technically the Phoenix Wishwing has not been out for terribly long. And this is probably a temporary placeholder on the list, right? Because they're getting ready to buff the inert Phoenix Ash. But as of right now, this pet is kind of a bit hellish to farm for still. Even now, because of the low drop rate on the inert Phoenix Ash. That's not the technical name, I don't remember what the exact name is, but the inert Ash is a horrible farm. Even if you only have no one out there with you, it'll still take you hours, unless your luck is better than mine. Okay, so this one obviously isn't one particular pet, it's a set of pets, and that's the Protoform Synthesis pets. Now, the archetype of multiplicity, not a part of this group, right? Because when you craft it, it makes 2 of them, throw them on the auction house, they're super cheap to grab. I think anyone who sees the price of the Protoform Synthesis pets on the auction house or has farmed for them would probably mostly agree with this spot on the list. There are some people who are more into farming than I am who had no problem getting all of these pets, but I was just not about that Genesis Moats farm. It was horrible. It was way too much time, in my opinion, to spend on farming moats. I put the Gilded Waiter and the Burdened Soul in number 7 because they were both kind of horrible to farm. I purchased my Gilded Waiter. I think I farmed for the Burdened Soul, but I purchased my Gilded Waiter. But people are still to this day waiting for certain chests to be up in Bastion to be able to try and get the Gilded Waiter. That one still sits at number 86 on the Warcraft Pets rankings. And it's not a fun farm, it's got a low drop rate. And the Burdened Soul paired with it, so the Burdened Soul is kind of in the same boat as the Wicked Lurker, right? We need a specific calling to be up in the Shadowlands. Then we need a specific chest to spawn because the Burdened Soul only drops from one of the secret treasure chest spawns. And then that chest also has a relatively low drop rate for the Burdened Soul. They might have buffed it. I feel like people at one point were going after it, and they were like, oh my gosh, look, this person got it and this person got it. So they might have ninja buffed the drop rate, but you still have to wait for a calling, hope that that calling spawns the chest, and then hope that the chest drops the pet. So the Burden Soul sits at number 120. And the only reason I added it on here and not a little lower is because I wanted to combine the Gilded Waiter and Burden Soul because they had the same kind of feeling in Shadowlands for their drop rate. So that's why they're kind of sitting at number 7 together. I told you the Celestial Calf would make an appearance on my list as well. I don't have it at number 2. I do have it at number 6. It does still come in at number 59. The reason I don't have it higher up on the list is because it's not super difficult to obtain, right? There's a small degree of RNG waiting for the Mad Merchant to pop up, but that's not really any kind of horrible RNG. Really, the difficulty comes in getting that much gold. So that's why I didn't place it too terribly high up on the list, because for me, farming gold is, it's not super easy. I'm not very good at it, but I got to 1,000,000 gold, and I think if I can get to 1,000,000 gold, most people can. It's really hard not to spend it on other pets. If you have other pets you can buy, that's the hardest part, really. So, having a little bit of a jump in difficulty, we have Micronax. Micronax comes in at number 54 on the Warcraft Pets list. And according to Warcraft Pets, because I knew it was a part of an achievement set, but I couldn't remember what, Micronax is awarded for the meta achievement Glory of the Tomb Raider. There are 9 parts to this achievement, and they can only be completed in the Tomb of Sargeras raid on normal difficulty or higher. This is one of those pets, again, it's just like Lagan, right? You need someone guiding you through these raids who knows what they're doing. And if you didn't get this while raiding in Legion, the chances that you're going to find groups for it with someone who can guide you through it are pretty rare. I will say though that if you don't know about the Perky Pugs Discord and you're looking to do specialized groups for achievements, it is the perfect place to go. I'll link their Discord below. They are an amazing group of people who set up runs for all sorts of things, for achievements, raids, dungeons, mythic plus learning groups, depending on what time in the expansion it is. I honestly cannot recommend them enough. This was how I got my Micronax. So I was just kind of lurking in the Perky Pugs Discord, and I saw someone who had the Glory of the Tomb Raider achievement set listed as the group they were going to run, and that's how I got my pet, was through Perky Pugs. So big shout out to Perky Pugs, and again, I will link their Discord below for you to take a gander to see if maybe you can grab your Micronax. In number 4, we have the Violet Violence. The Violet Violence is the 1600 Pet Collection Achievement Pet. So this is the pet you get once you've gotten to 1600 pets in your roster, unique pets. This is going to be one of the ones on my list that doesn't necessarily age well. As we get more pets to collect, it's going to be easier to get. It'll still be something you'd have to work for, but it's going to be far more feasible for the majority of people who are looking to do their pet collecting achievements. So this is one of those probably won't age well slots, but as of right now, this is where they would sit on the list. Okay, so for number 3, it probably could have been interchangeable with the number 2 slot, but it's the Stunted Direhorn. The Stunted Direhorn comes at number 48 on the Warcraft Pets list. And I want you to think about it. This pet was released in Mists of Pandaria. That's MOP. Mists of Pandaria. That was expansions ago, right? This was a long while ago. Now, I'm sure you're wondering, well, why is it at number 3? And why is it only at 48 or what have you. That's because it requires you to win 250 pet battle PvP matches. Most people are happy to just get their 5 battles won during Pet Week at this point. And the fact that it's still so high up on the list, even this many expansions later, just lets you know how, not necessarily difficult, but how tedious this pet is to get. At number 2, I have the Zapthrottle Spirit Pets. Now, like I said, number 3 and number 2 could kind of be interchangeable. However, I feel like you have a little more control over how many wins you can work on for the Stunted Direhorn. It's, okay, I only need 250 wins. It's a set amount. You know you only need 250 to get the pet. So in that sense, in my mind, because you have a static goal, it's easier to get. For the Zapthrottle Spirit Pets, I believe they're all pretty high up there. So you've got like the Gale Spirits at 42, the Dust Spirits at 46, the Tide Spirits at 49, and then the Blaze Spirit is at 51. So the Tide Spirit and the Blaze Spirit are the only 2 beyond the Stunted Direhorn, but the other 2 are below it. The way to get this pet is pretty horrible. The RNG for this pet to drop from the item that you get by using the Zapthrottle Soul Inhaler is pretty horrible. Even after they buffed it, it's still not great. That's why they're still super expensive on the auction house, especially now that people have moved on to different content. The fact that you need an engineer to craft the Zapthrottle, and then you need a jewel crafter to craft the soul cages. So these pets are not only expensive to get if you don't have an engineer and a jewel crafter yourself, they are also horrible drop rates. So that's why they came in at number 2 on my list, because there is far more of an element of RNG to these Zapthrottle Spirit Pets than the Stunted Direhorn. And to absolutely no one's surprise, in the number 1 slot are the Honor 400 pets, Sir Snips, and Bucket Shell. So these are the pets that once you reach Honor level 400, which is absolutely mind-boggling. I like to forget that these pets even exist, but I felt that they absolutely deserved the number 1 slot. And to give you an idea, these pets rank above things like Mini Tyrael. Like, put that in your mind for a second. Mini Tyrael, the pet that people spend I don't know about 10,000, but it's like thousands of dollars to get. Mini Tyrael. Fewer profiles have Sir Snips and Bucket Shell than Mini Tyrael. Like, that's wild to me. Like I said, these pets, I'm never gonna get them. There's absolutely no way that in my time on this green earth that I will ever get these pets. It's just not gonna happen. And the fact that they rank so high on the list is the reason that they take the number 1 slot. Like, don't get me wrong, they're cute. I'd love to have them, but I'm not getting to Honor level 400 in this lifetime. But that's gonna be it. Do you agree with my list, or do you have a suggestion you feel deserved a spot? Let me know in the comments below. Until next time, I wish you all the best in your pet battling and collecting endeavors, and happy battling!